Hello, this is I Do Damage and welcome back to the channel. In this last Epoch video, I want to talk to you about the future of the game, the upcoming patch, and more. Dodo from 11th Hour Games just posted a forum post that I will have linked down in the description below, talking about what's to come with last Epoch, and I am beyond excited. There's so many exciting things, features, improvements, and just everything that I'm really looking forward to. Let's go ahead and talk about it. First of all, I want to point out the latest patch 0.8.3 with the Sands of Majasa update added so much quality to the game, and this is a trend you see with Last Epoch throughout its time so far in early access. Every update to the game just adds so much more polish and quality that I just continue to expect more and more each update. And that continues to be true. They also just recently increased the size of their team up to, I think, 50 staff members was the last number I heard. And you can definitely see that they have the manpower to really polish this game and make it a really honest contender for the future. If you haven't checked out the last Epoch State of the Game video that I posted, I do recommend it. I'll have that link in the description and in the comments below as well. But in this video, I really want to focus on patch 0.8.4 and the future of last Epoch. In this blog update, they did kind of touch on multiplayer, which if you didn't know, 11th Hour Games publishes a monthly update regarding multiplayer and how they're progressing on that front. Definitely worth keeping an eye out for. We still don't have a solid specific date for multiplayer testing or anything of that nature. Basically, it's kind of a waiting game at this point when it comes to multiplayer. But that's okay. There's so many other features and things that I've been really waiting a long time for last Epoch. And one of those things is legendary items. Legendary items has been something I've been waiting almost years for, it seems like. And along with the legendary item system, they're going to be adding in the Eternity Cache system as well, which is an endgame type system that will feed into legendary items. They have not specified how this will work. However, I can remember back in the early conception of early access, when Last Epoch was first entering early access and reading about the Eternity Cache, it was supposed to be some sort of cache that you could go and put an item into, and then later on it will develop and become an even more powerful item with other mechanics tied to it. But as it is right now, it's really purely up to speculation. The way that I think this will work, and the reason I'm saying this is because in the blog post they talk about saving your exalted items because you may need them for the legendary system and an Eternity Cache system later. So the way I'm thinking it's going to work is you will somehow be able to find this Eternity Cache. I don't know if it's going to be something you have to buy with currency or a random drop or how that'll work, or maybe there's only so many that are tied to the end game that you can use. But I think the way it's going to work is you'll put an item into that cache, and then eventually you'll have to do so many different runs, and once you've completed so many runs, you can retrieve your item and it will have become a legendary. Again, pure speculation on my part, and we'll have to wait to get the exact details of how those two systems will work. But there's no doubt these two systems, legendary items and the Eternity Cache, will go hand in hand. Another system coming in patch 0.8.4 that I am personally excited for is the very first dungeon. Now you might be thinking, well, we already do maps and all of this throughout the story, and there's timelines in the monolith. Aren't those dungeons? Well, they're talking about a whole nother system that is actual dungeons, and it's the first of its kind to use randomized tile sets and randomized maps and layouts. This is really exciting for me. I know that I've played quite a bit of Last Epoch during its time in early access, and running the campaign is cool and all, but it's always the exact same layout, and you can just memorize it and run through it. So I think having dungeons will be a really cool feature, especially with the randomization of the floors and the layouts of the map. My biggest concern with dungeons is I want to know, it's not really a concern, it's just more of something I've been thinking about, is how is these dungeons going to fit into the actual end game, and what will the rewards be? Perhaps the dungeons are meant to be super challenging instances that you can go and conquer, and maybe that's how you get a hold of the Eternity Cache or something like that. I don't know, pure speculation, but they did also talk about in the blog that these dungeons will have special mechanics that you don't see in the monolith and in the campaign, and should be a really unique experience. I'm excited to check out and know more about the dungeon feature. One thing I noticed in this blog, and this kind of caught me by surprise, is the fact that they are changing around the crafting system. I've actually been pretty okay with how the crafting system currently works, But hey, hopefully they improve it in the right ways. And they do mention in the blog post that crafting is one of the fan favorite systems. And so when they're making updates and changes to the system, they want to make sure they do not change what we do already love about the system. There is one negative part with crafting that I've noticed, and a lot of players have noticed, I'm sure, is you have a random chance to fracture your item, and it can just happen randomly. And when it happens, you just can't do any more with that item. It's toast. It's gone. It's, that's it. You trash the item at that point. But they're talking about what they're planning on doing with crafting. And again, in the blog post, it's very short on details, so there's a lot of speculation here. But they're talking about keeping this crafting system deterministic. So you will have that player input of putting in what stats you want using the affix shards. They want to continue to keep some form of randomization with crafting as well. But they do mention that the randomization will no longer be just suddenly fracturing and breaking an item. So you can't craft on it anymore. So I'm hoping there's some way that we can either repair these items, or maybe there's different types of, because they already have instability as a mechanic there. But hopefully they have some sort of way that it becomes weaker before it just randomly fractures so that you know ahead of time. I don't know. I think it'd be really cool to allow us to repair items in some way, and obviously make it some really expensive chase item in order to be able to do that. Anyway, that's pretty much the crafting update on the blog. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with the crafting system for sure. Those are the top things that I'm excited for in patch 0.8.4. Your crafting, the Eternity Cache, the legendary items, and the dungeon system. There's a few more things they mentioned in the blog, and I think is worth noting in this video. They are continuing to update the game visuals and the feel of combat. If you read the blog post, make sure you read all the way to about the last paragraph. This is where they mentioned that feeling of combat is an ongoing process that they are going to polish, and they're trying their best to make it as solid and as fluid as possible. Combat is the number one thing I look for in any action RPG. That's what you're doing most of the time that you're playing the game, is you're killing monsters and partaking in combat. So they really need to get it right. That includes animations, sounds, and visuals. They've already talked about in this blog updating game visuals across the board. A lot of the new acts and chapters in Last Epoch are really good compared to the earlier acts. And I've noticed that the first chapter in Last Epoch is pretty out of date. And I'm so pumped to see that they mentioned in the blog that they are going to go back and update some of those void creatures that have been around. They're some of the oldest creatures in the game. So it's awesome they're going back and improving the early game experience, because first impressions are important. Also, in terms of game visual updates, in Sands of Majasa, the Primalist got a character model update. They did mention that in the upcoming patch 0.8.4, all of the other classes will receive model updates as well. Last but definitely not least, and I saved this for last because I haven't really played Druid a lot on Last Epoch. I played a Spriggan build like way back in the day when I very first started streaming and making videos. The Druid rework is, from what it looks like, just a complete overhaul. I don't know enough about Druid to sit here and tell you every little detail about the rework and the class, but it should be a great change nonetheless. I guess maybe it's a good thing I haven't spent a lot of time on Druid, so that I can just, know it for how it is with the new version that is to come. They have said they're going to come out with a new Druid form. There's going to be new visuals, and all the transform abilities have new skill trees, whole new mechanics. They're going to make it easier to stay transformed, and multiple build support, key binding for different Druid abilities. And it just looks like they're really reworking the Druid mastery. It makes me wonder if they're going to do something similar for other classes as well. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if so, please consider hitting that like button so we can spread the word. Subscribe to the channel, and make sure you ring that bell, and make sure you have all notifications turned on instead of personalized. This way you can get notified whenever I post a new video or go live. If you feel like you want to take that support even further, we do have the super thanks feature enabled on the channel, and I do stream pretty often here on the YouTube channel as well. Come by, hang out. I'd love to see you live. You guys are so awesome. Thank you so much for the continued support. It means the absolute world. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.